The Amalgamated Union of Foodstuff and Cattle Dealers of Nigeria closed all routes between the northern and southern part of Nigeria for vehicles conveying cattle and food items, sometimes back in form of strike, due to their unattended to demands by the federal government. But the 6 days was not without losses. Hello and welcome to Let's Talk. My name is Olorunsola. I have with me Mr. Olorunsola Osasona, Youth President, All Farmers Association of Nigeria, Ogun State Chapter. And the topic is Food Blockade in the Face of Insecurity. Stay with us. Thank you for coming on the show, Mr. Shola.
How are you?
I'm very fine. All right, thank you so much for coming once again.
Thank you.
Now, the topic is food blockade in the face of insecurity.
Yeah.
Now, let's look at the recent happenings in Nigeria, especially with the Farmers Association. What farm produce does the North have that the South don't have?
It's a very big question, Joke. Like the way we put it is that there's hardly any crop grown in the North that, except for a few, that doesn't also grow well in the Southwest. And there's been this, let me say, need, particularly concerning some of the vegetables, like cucumber, watermelon, even tomatoes, and of course, cotton. It has been peddled for a very long time that these are crops that does better in the North. But at least from practical point of view, we've been able to debunk that to let us know that the land in the Southwest is also suitable for all this. You can see, especially the tomato. One of the things that was withheld from the North is actually the tomato and the yam the other time. Mm-hmm. And yeah, tomatoes and yam. And you will discover that in the Southwest here, you get to some farms and you think you are in Kano, because even just walking along the street, these women selling tomatoes and all that, the tomato just dropping on the floor, not that somebody actually deliberately planted them. You see these tomatoes growing. So there's anything that you hardly put in the ground here that doesn't grow. So the question is now, why is it that we have to just depend on this, our folks from the North to actually feed us in the Southwest?
Was the strike actually necessary or justifiable?
For me, the strike is not necessary, but at the same time, it only came to confirm the fact that we cannot continue to do things like we have always done it. I was somewhere this other time and I began to talk about the fact that for a very long time, there's been this cry for restructuring in Nigeria. You see, our restructuring is something that can be engineered from the political landscape. And when it is being engineered, it will have a ripple effect on all the other aspects of the economy. But it's like our political office holders have been kind of turning deaf ears to this because it has really not affected them. It has, I feel they've not really come to a point where they have seen the need for this country to be restructured. Mm-hmm. And you see, now we are seeing it having being expressed in the agricultural sector. You see, the truth of the matter is that what is happening now is like a woman that is pregnant. Mm-hmm. You see, when a woman is pregnant, when it comes to, when it begins to approach the 9 months, you see, the level of discomfort becomes more pronounced. For me, it may look somehow disadvantageous, but it's not a disadvantage. It's actually a process of life. So what actually happened is a process of change that is, forcing itself upon us. The change is something, like I said the other time, that is not something you can hold. It's like water. You can't hold water. So what happened actually came to confirm to us that there is problem in this country. There are issues, real issues that is begging for attention. And now that it has happened, I believe that talks are going on, even among the political stakeholders and all that, to see how we can actually look in the direction of finding a kind of a permanent solution so that these kind of things will not be recurring again in our country. It's actually not called for. It's not something that should have happened in the first place.
So what are the losses that were incurred during this the strike?
The losses that were incurred, in fact, it's something that cannot even be quantified, because the losses incurred happen on both ends. For example, now, when the blockade happened, you discover that at that very, very short time, just less than maybe a week or a week plus, a lot of people were demobilized in terms of job, because now from the farmers, a farmer that has gone to the field to plant tomatoes, that has gone to the field to plant yam, expected that this yam will be transported to a place where he's used to getting his market. So, and suddenly, the tomatoes couldn't leave the farm. And we began to see situations where these tomatoes began to rotting. And in the southwest here, of course, when there's a seller, there has to be a buyer.
Sure.
So, and like I said, the losses happen on two ends. Now, the market woman that was waiting to patronize the tomatoes from the north was also waiting. So the person that will have actually, keyed into the value chain. In fact, the truth of the matter is that even when you go to the food sellers and all that, you see that it's affected the price of almost everything in the market. So the effect is something that it will be difficult for us to quantify within that just 1 week. You cannot imagine if this had, gone on and on for more than a week, for more than a month and all that. So that's why it's important for us to actually look in the direction of providing a permanent solution to this thing.
So how would you describe the economic impact of this singular act on Nigerian economy now and perhaps the future?
You see, the impact of this singular act on the Nigerian economy, like I said, it's something that, it's negative. And of course, it's something that also has what a kind of a multiplying effect, because it has only come to expose us even before the international community that, you see, there's fire on the mountain. Number one, when things like this are going on, it prevents investors. No investor will want to bring his money and his resources come and invest in an atmosphere that is not secure, in an atmosphere of animosity, because he's not sure if he's going to be the next. He's not sure if, by the time he brings his investment, something will just suddenly happen and his investment will be lost and all that. So looking at it from the internal perspective, like I did say to someone, I was speaking somewhere and I said to them that, you see, we may look at it that it's actually the South that was at disadvantage in the course of the blockade. But even the North, it actually came to expose the reality of us as a nation. Because over time, we have been saying that Nigeria has maintained its status, as a consumer economy. That means everything we produce, is channeled towards consumption. There is no value addition. We are not producing to add value. And you see, when we add value to a commodity, you get better price for it. It doesn't matter what commodity, from tomatoes to cotton. For example, look at cotton, for example. When we produce our cotton, for now, what we just do is that we produce the raw cotton and seed cotton, and we just transport it down to to Europe, to America, and all that. And these guys are smart. They collect the cotton from us, they add value to it, okay, and they begin to sell back the fabric, the cloth to us in exorbitant prices. Now, by the time you sell the raw cotton over there, you discover that there's a lot of employment opportunities that you have cut away in the value chain. So it's something that that has a very grave effect on the economy of Nigeria. And you see, for example, that food blockade. Number one, we are talking about food security. Let's not even go in the area of the economy first. Food security. And what is food security, for God's sake? It's just the ability of for a people, a community, a nation to be able to produce sufficient qualitative food, that meets a quantity that can feed the population. And mind you, that food also has to be healthy. It has to, the kind of food that you can say that you are eating and is nutritious. So now that this food blockade that happened and all that, you discover that, it exposed the reality of the fact that we are not, adding value, because those tomatoes, for example, don't have any reason to be rotten, and learn the lessons from this. We can begin to add value to our product. We begin to, number one, think in the area of producing sufficiently to feed our local population, and to also produce excess that will be able to add value to. And before we begin to feed West Africa, we feed Africa, and Nigeria has the potential to even feed the world.
Okay, now with what you've just said, it's an evidence of a divided nation.
Yeah.
So before we continue with that, I want us to quickly go on this short break, and when we come back, we continue from there. Stay with us. The program is Let's Talk on DNC Work, and I have been talking or discussing with Mr. Olorunsola Osasona. He is the Youth President, All Farmers Association of Nigeria, Ogun State Chapter. So, continue with us as we go on this ride. Thank you, Mr. Shola, for all that you've been saying so far. And before we went on that break, I actually talked about a divided nation being, the strike is actually an evidence of a divided nation. Because if you know that this thing is what people need to survive daily, something that people cannot do without, why would you want to suffer a whole nation because you want the government to hear you? So I would say, in my own opinion, which might not really count, but in my own opinion, I would say that even these farmers, these associations are selfish people. Why? Because instead of fighting for their people, they also made them suffer. Because you know that perishables are daily things, and you can't allow it to just go bad like that. So if you know that these same people you're fighting for, they will also be crying because you did what you think is best without thinking it through. Now, this takes me to my next question. What message is this passing to all Nigerians, especially Southerners?
Thank you, Joke. In fact, there's a lot of message in this particular saga to Nigerians, and especially to my people in the Southwest. Number one, Nigeria is a very beautiful country.
Sure.
Nigeria is a very blessed country.
Yes.
And you see, we have not come to a point where we're able to maximize the beauty of the diversity, that we have. Our diversity is actually not supposed to be a disadvantage. There's how we can actually leverage on our diversity in culture, in religion, diversity in terms of even our geographical locations. There's how we can actually leverage on this to build a very beautiful nation. I was in a particular farm sometimes last month. It's actually a rice farm. The rice has been harvested and taken out of the farm. Now we saw herdsmen on the farm, grazing the farm.
Wow.
And you see, this farm is right in the middle of a thick bush forest in Ogun State here. So I got talking to the farmer. I interviewed him. So how have you been surviving with these herdsmen in this bush all alone with your family? You know what he said? There's been they've been able to fashion out a way out of it, such that there's a healthy relationship between the two of them. Now, the farmer, once he plants his rice, there's an agreement between him and the herders. They know that they don't have the right to enter his rice farm. So you see them grazing around. So as soon as this man harvests his rice and takes it off the farm, now he gives the herders license to enter the farm and graze on it, eat the stalk. And so when I got there, I saw that the herders have actually eaten not just the top, but all the grasses available there. So now this farmer in this next planting season doesn't need to spend as much clearing the land because the cattle has actually grazed on it.
Oh.
He doesn't even use fertilizer for his rice.
Because of their...
Because as the cattle are grazing, they are also defecating on the farm. And this is manure.
So it's a win-win.
It's a win-win thing. This is beautiful. There's actually supposed to be a symbiotic relationship between us. And you see, some of the best friends I have in terms of business and what have you in this country is in the north. You and I schooled in the north, okay?
Sure.
Yeah, we schooled in the north. Some of the best friends I have in the agri sector here in Nigeria today are from the north. So I believe that this nation can actually work. These politicians are our problem. They want to divide us. That is the same game that our colonial masters played. It's called divide and rule. If you don't divide the population, it's difficult for you to rule them. So our politicians are playing the divide and rule game by making me suspect my northern friend, by making me suspect making my northern friend to suspect me, causing rifts and animosity between us. That is the only way they can actually get what they want. My message to Nigerians, whether in the north, in the south, in the east, is that this nation is too beautiful to be destroyed. This nation is too beautiful to be destroyed by the political class. I married an Easterner, for example. Okay, even though at the point of marriage, I had a lot of counsel, no, marry from your tribe, this and that, and all that. But I'm telling you, okay, I am having heaven on earth today by the reason of that singular decision. So whether a marriage will work, whether a nation will work, is not a factor of the diversity. We can actually figure out how to actually maximize the beauty of diversity that we have. And for us in the Southwest, it is time for us to actually wake up. We can't continue to depend on our counterparts in the north. We have the land. Our land is good.
All right, let me just cut you there because I still have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
Considering the state of security in the country, was there no fear at any time that this strike, blocking the roads, would actually make bandits to hijack whatever it is they say they're doing? Nigeria right now is insecure.
You see, the state of insecurity in Nigeria now is actually alarming. And like I said, you see, security is an expensive commodity that needs heavy funding. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. So for insecurity to thrive, that means there are individuals, organized systems that are sponsoring this insecurity. And if we're not careful, and that's why I know that God is on the case of Nigeria. If we're not careful, there's how that little thing that happened could have been hijacked by the sponsors of this insecurity to unleash hell on Nigeria. For example, look at what happened during the NSAS protest. Yeah. NSAS protest started more like an intellectual movement. It started from online and it moved to the street, very peaceful and all that. But you and I know what happened in Lagos. Sure. At the end of the day. You and I know what happened in Abuja at the end of the day. It happened so that, what started as a good movement that could have actually checkmated the political class and actually put everybody on his feet was hijacked. At the end of the day, you saw the level of mayhem and atrocities that were committed. Now, we just thank God that this blockade, because actually as a person, I was actually scared because before you know it, there's going to be a reprisal from the Southwest and small time, you just hear that somebody has been burnt alive in one part of the country and all that, and it's going to spread. But we thank God that at least we are still here today. As I told you that God is on the case of Nigeria, but we must not take the mercy of God for granted. We must rise up to do what we need to do as a people.
Okay, so what are other ways the Amalgamated Union of Foodstuff and Cattle Dealers of Nigeria can look into to actually make the government to yield in order to avoid this blockade or whatever they may want to do happening again, and to avoid the Southerners from also fighting back?
Well, the question is, what was the genesis of that food blockade? What actually inspired? It's actually because of the insecurity in the Southwest. It's not as if there are no farmers in the Southwest that are ready to engage the field, but as I'm talking to you, a lot of people are afraid to go to their farms. In the last couple of years, even my own father has not been able to go to some of his farms for fear of being killed or molested by the herdsmen. So what happened in the Southwest is actually a reaction to something that the government should have actually preferred solution to before now. So, and when the issue of insecurity began to prolong and all that, and it's like the government is not able to do anything about it. Somebody will go to the farm and plant his crops, and the next time you wake up in the morning and just get to the farm, the herdsmen have consumed everything. And people cannot go to the farm. People are being kidnapped. People are being maimed. In fact, somebody came all the way from, I think, the US to come and invest somewhere in your state, and before you know it, the man was killed. An elder statesman, Chief Olufalaye in the Southwest was kidnapped at a point. So all these things began to hit up the polity in the region. And that's why the people began to organize and begin to ask questions. I begin to say, no, we can't continue like this. And they were actually not protesting. They were not, in fact, it was the protest first is actually to the government to see how the government can come to do what they're supposed to do in terms of security. But as it is, it's lingered. And that is actually what now propelled that food blockade. So now what they are saying is that now you have, for me, it's more like a very wicked thing to do, because you have prevented our people from going to the farm to farm the same commodities and crops that you are blocking from coming down. If there was security situation, under control in the Southwest, I believe so strongly that the extent at which we'll be depending on the North for food will have been reduced drastically. But our people has been dispossessed of their land. They can't go to the field. And that's one of the reasons why food security is a challenge in Southwest. And it's like, even though it may not be an organized stuff, but for me, it's not looking like an organized effort to actually frustrate, the Southwest farmers from going to the field so that they can continue to depend on the North. Okay, it may not be true, but in the very, it's looking more like that, because why should you block food when you know that these same people has not been able to go to the farm? And I think that it's a wake-up call for our leaders in the Southwest. We must actually come. I said the other day, a state of emergency needs to be declared in the agricultural sector. Let us all come together. Why are we not having enough food? Why are we not having enough food? Let us come together and brainstorm and see how we can actually begin to leverage on technology, on improved variety, to begin to engage our land, so that in a question of time, we also will begin to feed ourselves and begin to feed others around us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Olorunsola Osasona. It's been wonderful having you on the show. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Joke.
And thank you too for joining us on this edition of Let's Talk. I hope you've learned something. For me, Nigeria is too beautiful to be destroyed. So let's come together to make it work. Until next time, I remain Olujoke Musaku. Bye for now.